Hey, Dr. Rob.
Hey, Tammy.
We have questions. I've already told everybody we record this for YouTube, etc. So the first question tonight is, I have an obsession or urge to want to ask female friends, acquaintances about their physical experience of sex. I haven't done it yet, but I'm frustrated by this thought. I know this comes from wanting to live vicariously through their experience since I've never had unprotected sex, only protected with escorts. How can I train this thought away?
Well, I'm a little confused, I guess, because you're someone, I don't know exactly what to say, except that this is someone who's not having, it sounds like a sex life through dating and relationships and getting to know people, but more just being sexual and paying for it. So I guess one of the questions I would have for this person is unrelated to what you said in a way, but related, like, why are you not dating? Why aren't you out there meeting people? Why aren't you being sexual without having to pay for it? Because I think that's an even more immediate question than the one you asked. And it's also related to the question you asked, because if you're engaging in sex that isn't, sorry, my dog's barking, isn't relationship based, isn't connected, it can allow all kinds of fantasies and stuff to run in our heads. And so I'm just wondering, first of all, you're not going to be able to get that thought to go away. It's still until you start living sexually in a way that is legal and you're not paying for it and you're actually connecting to real human beings. So I would start working on that piece. But what you're talking about, just to say it, is kind of a voyeuristic fantasy, is just to put a name on it. You want to imagine what someone else's sex life is like. You want to hear about it. That's not unlike wanting to watch somebody through their window. That's not okay. And if you were with a loving partner and you wanted to ask them about their sexuality, great, you can learn things. But I'm glad you're not running up to strangers or people you work with those questions, because you will get arrested or lose a job, or bad things will happen. And you're right to wonder if this is problem. It is, but I'm not sure that you can get rid of the obsession until you start living your sexual life in a more healthy way.
Okay, so there's a comment in the chat. So this person indicates that his husband is coming to our program this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Interested in if we offer treatment for partners, or what intensive would you recommend? My pain is so intense. And I really would like to start with that, the intense of the pain for partners.
Why don't you start with that, and I'll answer the question after you start.
Okay. All right. Well, I understand. I really do. I always feel so for the partners that, the discovery and like thinking that this relationship that you've had for however long you've had it is, one way, and then finding out it isn't. And, it just really rocks the whole foundation, and the betrayal, and the trauma. So Dr. Rob wrote a book called Prodependence, Moving Beyond Codependency, but I'll tell you more about that in a moment. But we really look at supporting the entire treatment process. Everything we do online is from a prodependent standpoint. So we're not going, "Oh, you're part of the problem, you're codependent, you're blah, 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 blah." We really look at it, gosh, how the betrayal of the trauma, and, you love a broken person, and how can we support you? So I was mentioning to someone a bit ago that we are looking to have a prodependence intensive, but not till fall. Now, everything we do, like I said, in our treatment program is prodependence aligned. We offer a couples workshop, but for you, not only are there online support like the drop-in groups, but I can help you find a prodependent aligned therapist to help support you in this process. So, and, some partners actually need like an intensive, and there's a handful of them that I think do a decent job, and I'm happy to give you that information offline. So,
and I want to just answer that from the point of view of the treatment center. So
yes.
For those of you not aware, we do run a treatment center. It's called Seeking Integrity. It's here in Los Angeles. We do 2 to 4 week programs for men with sexual issues and co-occurring drug and sex issues. And I would like to think that I'm pretty much at the top of my game, and at my age, and I think the work we're doing is unbelievably good. I really, really do. I revel in how good this work is, as painful it is as the people who are with us. And so I wanted to respond to you. First of all, when someone comes into treatment, we're going to have somebody talk to their partner a couple of times in the first week. You're going to have, Tammy, I have to yawn. I'm so sorry. I just got to get this yawn out. I can't help it. I tried.
Daylight savings time change.
So sorry. Anyway, anyone who, if a male addict comes to our program and you're a partner or a parent or a male or female partner or whatever your close relationship is, you will be involved in treatment. You will get phone calls. You will be involved in online sessions. You can have couples work. The discharge plan and the plans that we're making toward the person leaving will be discussed with you. If we ask them to stay longer, or any issues that come up during treatment that might really affect you in that way are going to be discussed with you. And Tammy didn't mention this, but one of the things I really like about the program that we're running is that every month there's a couples workshop. And oftentimes that works out so that a couple might just be, the individual might be just finishing our program, and then the partner can come and they can both jump into the couples workshop together and kind of take advantage of what the two of you have been working on. I agree with Tammy, there are certainly a lot of places where you can go as a partner to get support, but ultimately, and I hope you do go wherever you need to go if you want to go to a workshop or a retreat or something like that. But ultimately, let me explain what you're dealing with as opposed to the addict. The reason the addict is in treatment is because the addict has been acting like a crazy person, okay? And they've been doing things that undermine their lives and the lives of the people they love, and they're really out of control and in a lot of denial, and they need to be stopped and held for a while so that we can confront and challenge and move them forward. But partners are more in a state of panic, crisis, stress, and loss. And for you guys, a lot of the healing comes in getting information, learning as much as you can about the problem, in joining with other partners, like in some of the groups we have online that are free, and talking to other partners about what they're going through and kind of normalizing your experience. Again, you may not be familiar with codependency, but I think it's not a particularly good model for what we use. And so prodependence is the model we use. There are tons of books, you know, the more education that you can do while your spouse is in treatment, the better. You can ask for as many sessions as you'd like to have individually or while your spouse is in treatment, and we'll do our best to accommodate. So you're not in treatment because you don't need treatment, in the sense that you don't have a behavior that's out of control. And if you keep doing it, it's going to cause major problems, and you need a place to go that's safe that you don't keep doing it. But you do need a lot of comfort, a lot of support, a lot of knowledge, a lot of education, a lot of reassurance, and a lot of hope. And I think that there are a number of channels you can get that through. I'm guessing, and I don't know you personally, but I'm guessing that this is a fairly new situation in your marriage or relationship, and therefore this pain is unfamiliar to you. But let me tell you, the pain you're going through is what every spouse who's sitting here goes through. To various degrees. Everyone is devastated, everyone is betrayed, everyone feels like their life is over, and everything they thought they had is now gone. And then they begin to feel back in pieces over time what they really have and what they really don't. So don't give up. Do keep coming, read everything you can, join as many partners groups as you can, be in touch with a therapist who's seeing your spouse, or who will see spouses while you're, who sees your spouse while you're, be in touch with a therapist that's seeing your addict spouse while he is at Seeking Integrity, and you'll get a lot of support through the process. And I'm sorry, and I do want to say this though, the pain is a part of of the crisis you're in. You know, your life has been turned completely upside down. And everything you thought was red is green, and everything that was green is red, and you don't know what's blue. And so it's going to be a wild ride for a while. And you can expect that this crazy, happy feeling is kind of your new normal for a while. But it'll be easier for you when you hear other partners talk about it and relate to you.
I just put in a couple of things. I put a link to the couples workshop, and you can look at the goals and things like that. But also, if anybody ever has questions, I will put my email address in there too. But I also added the podcast, because there are several podcasts that Dr. Rob has done on prodependence. So you can also listen to those as supplement to reading.
Well, and on betrayal, and on partner issues, and on couples, and you know.
Yeah, in fact, the link I shared has podcasts recommended for addicts, for couples, for partners.
I think we have somewhere around 65 or 70 podcasts recorded now. So there's a lot of information there.
Yes.
On every level about cheating, infidelity, healing relationships, sex, all of it.
Yes.
Okay. And we're glad you're here.
Yes.
Please, I'm so glad you're not alone.
Glad you're here. So, okay, the next question. Husband and I met 30 years ago and were married for 25 when he was arrested. He had court-ordered therapy that lasted a year before he was put into federal prison for 10 years. During that year, he admitted to me he had been a sex addict for 40 years. Is there protocol for a wife to get a disclosure after a spouse is imprisoned? We divorced 2.5 years after discovery, and I'm struggling to move on. Wow, that's a tough one. So.
Okay, so a couple of things. Tammy, you have probably seen some things go by recently, or at least I have, for people who are working with spouses who have someone in prison and spouses who have offenders as partners. And let me say to this person that most of what we're talking about when we talk about sex addiction is not arrestable behavior, is not illegal behavior. Most of the people, about 90% of the people that I treat and work in our treatment centers, come to our treatment centers, have been dealing with problematic behavior, but it's mostly affairs, sex workers, apps, hookup bars, massages, adult bookstores, strip clubs, and all of that. So if our clients do cross the line into offending, it's often with online behavior and not actually in actual content, because we're not a sex offender treatment agency. If your husband went to federal prison, my guess is he is either looking at an awful lot of child porn or he had some kind of contact offense. You're absolutely welcome in our support groups, and you can get a lot of help there. But no one that I would respect would do disclosure with you. So let me tell you why. Disclosure is something that is done in the service of repairing a broken relationship. If the two members of the couple are committed to growing together and healing, then we think that everything needs to be on the table and everybody needs to know what's happened and they need to figure that out and work through it and move on. But if you're divorced, we don't give partners or couples information about the other's behavior if you're no longer together. The only reason that we give behavior is to promote the health and healing. The reason we do disclosure is to promote the health and healing of your relationship. If you're in a divorce, I do hear and feel your pain. You want to know more about him. You want to understand how you met him, stayed with him, and what exactly he did. I don't know that you're ever going to know that. You know, I think that you have to come to your own peace being out of this relationship with what you do know and find a way to move on in a healthy way. I'm sorry. I think where you will gain the most from the other partners is in this area that we call gaslighting, which is, you know, if your husband was actively offending in some way that would bring him to a prison and you didn't know about it, then I can only imagine the number of lies, the number of secrets, the number of times he said red is green and green is blue. And you know, for you to just put your life back on track with what you even think happened is something that all of our partners have to go through, many of them not knowing exactly what happened. So, you know, the detail of what he did, since he's not really actively in your life right now, may be less important, although you want to know it, than the plans you're making to move on and have a life of your own today.
Yeah, and I agree, because, you know, even knowing all the details, I don't think that will settle. It might alleviate some anxiety, but to me, this is just grieving the loss of, you know, the relationship he should have had, grieving the loss that he's not there now. I mean, like all of those things, you know, grieving that you don't know. So really hope you'll get some major support to help you work through that grieving process as well. So my husband and I stopped the divorce last December and have been working on getting back together, spending time together and seeing a CSAT for couples therapy soon. This weekend, my husband said he downloaded a dating app last year while drunk, but never acted on it, but did not delete it. I asked him calmly why he didn't when we stopped the divorce to work on our marriage, and he said he didn't know. He said he'll delete it, but didn't say when. He said he thought I'd be happy he told the truth about the app, and he didn't act on it. I am devastated. I feel if he was 100% committed to working on the marriage, the app would have been deleted long ago. He tells me he can't tell me the truth anymore. I am drained with the gaslighting, Darbo, and narcissistic behavior. What boundary can I make that does not sound like an ultimatum? Am I making more of this than it is? We've been together since they were 17. Discovery was 3 years ago. They 42 years together. So
Tammy, well, we have someone for the old ladies posse. That's for sure.
Yes. And it's the old lady. Let me qualify that.
She doesn't know what that is. So.
Yeah, so I was gonna say the old lady posse is a drop-in group. It's tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. And they named it that way. I was going to change the name. And they're like, no. And so it's a group of
Women.
people, yeah, it's partners, betrayed partners that are empty nesters, you know, have been, you know, longer term together or not, but, you know, are in a different place in life than someone who's got little kiddos. So check that particular thing out.
Yeah, I think the partners who are in their 50s and 60s have a different sense of their marriage and they're cheating than someone who's in their 20s or 30s kind of thing. And so the older women who had been in a 40-year marriage, have been in a 30-year, you're not alone. And so they have a specific group that meets, and boy, will you feel comforted by being with those women. And they will give you their phone numbers, and they will reach out to you and they will help support you. That's why we have these groups, not for us to sit around and you know, volunteer our time to do groups. We're glad to, but more so that you guys can connect and get the support and understanding you need. There was something else in that question that I wanted to ask.
Well, I want to go back to, like, they stopped the divorce in December and are scheduled to start seeing a therapist, but I'm like, what has he done since December? Like, and I know you're just sharing a little bit, but like, you know, what is he doing for recovery? It's, I don't know, you know?
Well, I think, let me jump on that, because I think what Tammy's saying is, look, you decide to stay in the marriage, but what is the criteria by which you made that determination? In other words, did he say, well, I'm going to go to 12-step meetings and I'm going to go to therapy and I'm going to start reading and doing some journaling and I'm going to join some support groups? I mean, did he make an active effort? Because as you probably know, addicts are lying if their lips are moving. So the only way that I really would believe, don't bark at me, I'm your dad. The only way I would really believe your husband is if I saw him taking actions. I want to hear how his meeting went and how he felt about it, how he and his therapist are doing. I would want to see him dragging you into couples work because he wants things to be better. What I don't hear in this situation is an active addict who's seeking recovery. And that concerns me because, and I bet Tammy's picking up on this too, like my fantasy about this story is that around December, you decided you were tired of being angry at him. And he was being sweet and you were, you know, and things were, and you decided to make it better. But it isn't going to get better until he gets active and he has a commitment to change. And if he doesn't listen, that's what treatment is for. We're glad to take him. But I feel for you if you don't know what the plan is for him to get better and you're working once again, as you probably did it on emotions, like I want to believe him, I want to care about him, I hope he's, as opposed to facts. He's seeing this therapist, he's reading this book, because that's what you want to see in an addict: action, not words.
What did his sponsor say about not deleting the app? You know, did his sponsor go over? I mean, what is his plan? What is, you know, like, yes, what is the plan? And that's what I didn't hear anything about.
If Tammy and I were married, and we're not, and Tammy and I were in a room together, and Tammy said, I think you have something on your phone that I want you to delete. And you said, and I said to her, yeah, I've got this app. I would then proceed to delete it in front of her. I wouldn't say, well, I'll get to it, or like, what's wrong with him? What is he thinking, that you're going to be satisfied with it? Well, I'll get to it later. Doesn't he realize that raises your anxiety because now you're thinking he's using it? So your husband is not on the right track. And I don't think that you will be able to find your place in all this unless he has a different kind of commitment to recovery, whether that's treatment or therapy, or I don't know what he needs to do. And let me just say this, regular couples therapy is not helpful. It just isn't. If someone doesn't understand the addiction, if he really has an addiction, if someone doesn't understand disclosure and why we do it, if someone doesn't understand the grief and the pain of the betrayal and what you're going through, if someone doesn't understand prodependence, which means that none of this is your fault, you couldn't have done anything to make it not happen, and he probably had the issue before you met, that's going to lead you down the wrong road, because there are many well-meaning couples therapists who don't have a clue about the addictions, no less these issues. So here's a suggestion. Write Tammy a note, tammy@seekingintegrity.com. Make sure that who you're going to see is going to be helpful. We know people all over the country. We've been doing this for many, many years. We don't get kickbacks for our referrals. And if we can find you the really best person for you and your husband to see, that's what we want for you.
Well, and I want to tag on to that, because we're seeing a CSAT for couples therapy soon. I want to know who he's seeing for his individual and group therapy.
Now.
I want to know, yeah. I mean, all of that kind of stuff, because, you know, and we'll talk about, because the next question is about prodependence, so we're going to elaborate on that. But like, you deserve support. you know, there's nothing broken with you. You deserve support.
Well, except
He
that,
needs,
that living with him is like
right.
being broken.
Yeah,
Right?
yes. But it, you know, like, and we'll talk about prodependence in a moment, but you know, like first thing in December, did he pick up the phone and call his CSAT so he could start working on it? Has he been seeing his therapist every week, going to the group therapy that the CSAT offers also?
How about some of our online groups for addicts?
All
Has
of
he
our
been
online,
stopping in there?
yes.
Is he online with you right now? Because this is where he needs to be, not just you. I mean, this is what I'd be looking for, a lot of action from him.
And the blame shifting of like, well, now I can't tell you the truth because you had a reaction because, like,
No,
I mean, oh my God,
that's,
don't get me started. But
oh, I won't
you
say
know,
the word.
yeah, no, well, yeah. So Dr. Rob wrote a book called Out of the Doghouse. I'll put that in the chat as well. But like that talks about what you need to do to build, rebuild trust.
And what you
And
want to
he's
see
not
him
building
do.
trust. Yes,
What
exactly.
you want to see him doing.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So I will put that in. So the next question though is, can you define what you mean by prodependent?
Yes, I
know
can.
you can. Well, please do.
Okay. So there's only been one model that we've had for therapy and treatment of partners and family members of addicts since 1982. And that method has been called codependency. And anyone who's married to or involved with any kind of addict for 35 years now has been called codependent. And I have never liked that label. I never thought it was a good label. I never really thought that there was anything wrong with the people who loved us, except that they had to suffer through what we put them through. And this whole idea in codependency that you have to, in order to heal as a partner, you have to examine your own past and look at your own issues. And aren't we trouble enough? Like, you have to do all that? I don't think so. So I wrote a book called Prodependence, which basically says that if you hang in there with an addict, I don't think that means there's something wrong with you. I think that means you're a hero. The ability to hang in there with someone who's troubled and hold on to the love that you both share in the hope that it will come back if you make the right moves is a miracle. It's a wonderful thing. So Prodependence is something that I've written that is kind of catching fire, which is a book about how we might work with and support families and partners of all addicts, with the brand new idea that maybe there's nothing wrong with you partners at all, and never has been anything wrong with you partners at all. In fact, you've been our heroes by hanging in there. And we shouldn't judge you. Why did you stay with him? You must be too sick, or you would have left. Or why did you marry him? You should have never. We don't blame you or judge you for choosing us or staying with us. We see that as a strength. In fact, your staying with us might be the key to our getting better. So I have written a book called Prodependence, which is much more supportive of partners and families than codependency, which really puts the problem where it belongs, on the addict, and says that everyone's been affected by this, but they're not contributing to it. Therefore, everybody does not need addiction treatment because you're not codependent. What you are is someone who's been deeply wounded and hurt by someone who is failing you. No matter how hard you work, no matter how much you do or say, they're still going to ruin your life. And you can't do anything about it. They might as well have cancer, and they're getting sicker and sicker and not getting well right in front of you. What partner wouldn't go crazy watching the person you love go down in front of you and you can't do anything about it? That is the craziness that the codependency folks go after. And I think it's just a normal reaction to a crisis. So I am rewriting the rules around how we treat family members and partners. This is, when I say it's going around the world, Prodependence is going to become an academic book. I'm going to have my first hardcover. One of the big academic publishers has approached me. The schools are going to be using it as an alternative approach to codependence. So this is a brand new concept that is really beginning to take hold and really catching fire in our community because of course, even if an alcoholic wife somehow thinks that she was responsible for his drinking, which I don't think she ever is, there is no way that any of you spouses, male or female, are ever responsible for our sexual acting out. And I think by extension, no partner of an addict can ever really be blamed for an addict's behavior. Look, I make my own decisions. You can piss me off, you can hurt me, you can let me down, and I can go for a walk. I don't have to go drink or have sex with a stranger. The choice to enter addictive behavior is mine and mine alone. And I really dislike any idea that puts on partners and families the responsibility of the addict's recovery. Did I do that right?
Well, you wrote the concept. I think
I
you
know,
did.
but
So
I guess we got that out.
Okay, so the next question is, in a drop-in group, so one of the drop-in groups on our site, I mentioned that I feel like I'm very different from the average guy in the groups. I'm gay, single, and really have no relationships to lose. Most guys are married or straight, married, and trying to avoid losing a marriage or family. The moderator seemed to indicate it was shame that keeps me so focused on being different. He said I was really very similar to the others. Is my thinking distorted here? I seem to be struggling more than others to get sobriety. I'm doing better at attending meetings, groups, and connecting with more guys, but I'm not really getting much sobriety. I just feel like I don't have that much motivation that others have. I'm confused and frustrated.
Okay, so a couple of things. Let's touch on the motivation piece, okay? I can do, and I do, and some of us do extraordinary therapies, extraordinary support. We can offer you miracles for some of you, but you have to want them. And for the addict who wants to recover, look, the pleasure of what you did is always going to seem more attractive in the moment than the long-term, I'm not going to do this because I want something more. You're right. The straight married guys in the meetings, they do work harder because they don't want to lose their kids, their wives, their families, and everything they've worked so hard to create. You, my friend, have not worked that hard to create this. So my question to you and comment to you would be, maybe you could have a healthy, meaningful, intimate relationship, or even a series of them, provided you stop this behavior, if that's something you want. What I don't hear is why you want to stop and what you want in exchange for stopping. When I wanted to stop my sexual behavior, it's because I wanted to improve my life. I wanted to have a better job. I wanted a better career. I wanted to start dating. I wanted to, all those things that I couldn't seem to get to because I spent too much time acting out and looking to act out with sex. And you know what? I got it. All the time put into meetings paid off. I have a relationship. I have a marriage. I have a job. I have a career. But it took a lot of work. And most of all, what it took is, even in the hardest moments, understanding that I was on the right path, that I needed to walk through this, that even when I was miserable and didn't want to and just wanted to run back to my acting out, that was not an option. So there's a few things for you. Number one, I think that there is not clearly a closed door on your acting out in your head. And by the way, I would not try to close that door myself. I would close it in a relationship with someone else, so I'm accountable to closing it. And by the way, here's a clue for you. I think you can have whatever kind of sex you want to have as often as you want to have it. Here's an easier way to recover. But first you have to run that by a sponsor or a therapist. And as long as you've gotten someone involved in your life who knows your story, who you've gotten to know well, if they agree that you can go to the strip club or the bathhouse, then go ahead. But my guess is, if you're willing to build deep enough relationships with people in recovery and therapy that you would tell them before you act out, then you're already on the path and the road to healing, because it's through those relationships and that work that you will heal. As far as being a gay man, look, I'm a gay man. I get it. But I want you to know that I used to go to gay meetings very early on, and I switched. I went from all gay meetings to mixed meetings because I wanted that extra level of motivation that I heard in those guys who wanted their marriages. I heard too many gay guys saying, oh, I can just get another boyfriend, or I can just go pick someone else up, or I'll just, it seemed to me at the time in the past, maybe different now, in the gay community, just too easy to give up on recovery and go back to drinking, using, sexing, whatever it is, because that's what everybody's doing, or at least it looks that way. It's much easier in the heterosexual world to see the happy couples, to see the happy relationships, see the healing, because it's much more present. So, I would ask you, and I'm going to stop here, how do you define being gay? Do you define it by the sex you have? Or how out there in the world are you with gay people in a choir, in a music group, in a baseball team, on a theater group? In other words, how much are you enjoying your gay life as a gay man that is not sexual? I think that's one thing that's important. And the other thing, the final thing I want to say is, I always encourage my gay guys to be in groups that are mixed, because we're men first, and gay or heterosexual second. We're men first, and Jewish or Christian second. We're men first, and black or white second. We're men first. And the issues that men share around sexuality and our vulnerability to it when we're broken inside is more similar. You have more in common with those men in terms of your problems than you realize. Your lifestyle may be different. Your relationship choices may be different, but your brokenness is the same. And it's around the brokenness that you want to connect to those guys, not how they're living their lives today, but in the inside challenge that they're growing beyond, because you have the same challenge no matter who you sleep with.
So my response,
you're nodding.
yay! Yes, yeah, because you know, like anytime somebody spends all their time looking for why they're different, you know, we call it terminally unique, you know, and that keeps me disconnected from everybody because, oh, they won't understand, they're different than me. And those feelings, the vulnerability, all of those things, you know, that's where the commonness is. You know, I can go to any meeting on anything and figure out, like, even if I don't identify with that particular acting out, you know, you'll
identify with the feelings.
Exactly. I'll relate on the underneath, on the feelings, you know, on the topic. You know, most of the time we're talking about, you know, other things, you know, gratitude or whatever. We're not talking about, well, you know, I'm acting out this way or whatever. I mean, whatever the topic is. So I would invite you, like the moderator did, to look for the instead of checking off where you don't relate, check off where you do. Like I'm going to extend a little challenge for you. Next meeting, look for, you know, 3 things where you actually go, I can relate to that, instead of looking for the differences. I really invite you.
And
but
I want to add to that.
Dr. Rob was talking about like the outside stuff too. So
I want to add to that, Tammy, because that's so well said. You know, so many people that I've worked with will go to a support group, even a therapy group, once or twice. And they'll say, and because they're afraid, and because they have all their defenses up, it's a new situation, it's very threatening, we're talking about sex, all of that stuff, they tend to say, oh, I'm not as bad as him. I'm not as bad as him. And we back our way out of those situations by not identifying with the different people. And then we feel relieved. Okay, I don't have to go to that group anymore. And I think the goal is, as Tammy said, to look for what is similar and not for what is different. You have so much in common with these men in your brokenness and in the path to healing. Who cares who you sleep with?
Okay, next question. Hi, female SLA porn and fantasy addict. As I have been practicing abstinence for about 6 weeks now, I am actually disinterested in my husband and his affection. I am almost repulsed by PDA from him. I don't understand why I feel like this. Before abstinence, I couldn't keep my hands off him. I find myself missing porn fantasy more than physical intimacy with my husband. We are going to couples therapy on Thursday, as has been recommended, since I'm in a group program.
You know, there's a new book I just want to mention called Restored by a woman that I interviewed on the podcast. Her name is Alice Taylor. And we did, it's a woman porn addict. I think I also did a podcast with Erica Garza, who wrote a book on called Getting Off, on being a female porn addict. I think if you can listen to some of that, read some of the stuff from female porn addicts, it's very normalizing. It's really helpful as a woman, I think, to read and listen to other women. So it just takes so much of the shame out of it, I think. Oh God, Tara, I have to yawn again. I am so sorry. I don't mean it, guys. I'm not bored with you guys. Let me talk about the disinterest, though. So, you know, we don't get to sex addiction or love addiction or porn addiction. We don't get there by accident. Okay, none of us has this problem and then it doesn't have any origins. It comes from somewhere. And it's not unusual that we act out sexually with porn or in other ways for a reason, a psychological reason. It allows us to be comforted, it allows us to escape, it allows us to maybe keep our sexual wheels spinning all the time. And when they are, we don't have to look at anything from our past. I don't know what it is psychologically for you, but I can say this. It is very, very typical, almost to a one, that the men and women that we treat or who go get help on their own, when they stop all the crazy, manic, stranger-based or porn-based acting out, that the genuine intimate sexuality is a little bit foreign, maybe even a little scary. All of a sudden, they're not turned on by their partner. They're not interested. I hear this a lot from people who drink and use over sex, and then they stop drinking and using. All of a sudden, they don't want to have sex anymore. They're not interested in sex anymore. But then when they're using, they had so much sex. And they don't understand why. Well, when you were pickled, you were able to ride through a little sexual high, and you didn't have to think about being molested or being abused or being abandoned or whatever happened to you in the past. But now you don't have the defenses of all that revved up sexuality to keep your mind humming with distractions. And now you're just with this man, and it's intimate, and you know him and he knows you, and that's all you've got. And for a lot of us, that's terrifying. And that's where the therapy and the hard work comes in. I actually believe, and I will say this to all of you, that I don't think that stopping our sexual acting out is the hard part. It may be for you right now, and I get that, but the harder part of this work is claiming human intimacy, connection, and relationship. It's being able to walk to my husband of 19 years and being able to figure out how we're going to make love together and how we're going to enjoy each other. And that's the hard part, because I'd rather watch TV. It's much easier for me to have sex with a stranger, even though the partners don't understand this, but we do. It's easier for me to walk up to a complete stranger and close the door and have sex than it is for me to be intimate and vulnerable and sexual with my partner, because that's where I could get hurt. And when we are in anonymous sex, or sex that's filled with intense fantasy, nobody can hurt us, nobody can let us down, no one can abandon us, because we're in control. All of that stuff's going on in our heads. But when we put all that away and we just have to be with people, it can be very difficult. And that's where the real long-term growth begins.
Yeah, and I was thinking even the repulsed.
That's trauma.
Yeah. I was thinking trauma, but also protection. It's like, if I'm repulsed, I'm pushing away. I'm physically pushing away. Even if it's like in your mind, you're just repulsed by it. So yeah, really.
These are therapy.
Yeah, I'm glad you're seeing hopefully a qualified therapist, to work on this. So, okay. Next question. I am in a long-term relationship, 8 years, but we don't live together. Are there special considerations or recommendations for recovery and relationship healing in situations like ours?
I'm not sure what the question is, Tim.
Well, yeah, because I'm like, we don't live together. I don't know if you live in the same town or if you're living across the country from each other. So I think we need a little more information. So if you want to add, because if you're living in town and this is post-disclosure and you're working on healing, then
Tammy's doing question interpretation.
Yes, a lot of recommendations seem to assume people are living in the same house. We live in the same city, but not in the same house. Okay, so we're working on healing, but do you think that there are differences if you are not physically in the same house, as you move forward?
Do you think that this is a couple, Tammy, that ever lived together? Or they don't live together because of what's happened? That would be a question that I would have.
Nope. That means nope, we've never lived together.
Okay, so I'm not sure where to start. I would be curious. I didn't hear that, whatever it was. I would really be curious for you, what has kept you from getting closer? Is it kids? Is it family? Is it technical things? Or have you just not ever felt it was right to move in together? Because I have to say, I've read and studied enough and lived enough and been licensed long enough to know that people who live apart, there's a certain growth that never really takes place. And I'll tell you kind of what it is. And this isn't related to the sex or all of that, but it is certainly related to intimacy. That long-term partners who live in other states and cities, no matter how wonderful their relationship, they never really have to make the kinds of day-to-day sacrifices that people who live together have to make. When you are together 1 week a month or 2 weeks a month or whenever you get together, it's much easier to plan in all the fun and let the laundry and the other stuff, that you'll do on your own or whatever. But when you live together, the responsibilities are shared. And life is not at all always fun. And there's a lot of growth in, Tammy might agree, in the day-to-day, well, I want to watch this movie, but you want to watch that one. Or I want to go hang out with our grandkids, but you want to go to the ball game. Negotiating how we spend our time. These are the intricacies of how intimacy is developed. So what I'm curious about, and I'm not going to ask you to answer now, but I would ask you of yourself, is what has left you content with a relationship that involved this kind of distance for so long? As far as a relationship in this situation, working in recovery, what are you moving toward? Would you move toward living together, having a real, what I call a more real, honest, meaningful, live relationship? Or will it continue to be distance? Because I, as a partner, would have a lot of time trusting somebody who didn't live with me. I don't know that I could rebuild trust, not knowing where he was in the evening, not knowing where she was going in the afternoons, not seeing them for a week at a time. I just don't think I would be able to build that kind of trust. And I think it's very hard for people who are dating to recapture. Here's a way of thinking about it. And then we should move on, Tammy. We often say that, and I can tell you that that 90% of the couples, if not more, that I've worked with over 25 years stay together, provided they've already been together for a while. It seems like couples who have at least 5 to 10 years of living together, they have kids, they have family, they have a home, they have church, they have community, they have parents. There's so many pieces that bring their lives together and keep their lives together beyond the infidelity. And so these couples will tend to fight to keep what they've had without the infidelity and just improve the relationship. But if you've never lived together, if you've never gone to a deeper bond, I would really question what, after what you know has been going on, what do you have? What do you really have? What do you think you had? And what do you know you had now? And knowing what you had, do you want to go back to that? Do you want more for yourself? Because I don't think, just my guess, a little experience, that after 8 years, if this is someone who has not wanted to live with you, that they're going to just suddenly want to live with you on year 9. And if you're someone who's waiting around to have the love of your life like you want to have it, I think you need to stop waiting for this bus ride and maybe find another. So I don't know you. I don't know your situation. These are just general thoughts. But most folks I work with really want to be closer.
So I was thinking very similar. I would have a hard time building trust if there was all this unaccounted time and I didn't know, I never saw them, didn't look in their eyes and all of that, that would not build the intimacy that I want, so that would not be appealing to me, but that's just me. There's lots of people that, I thought of Oprah and Stedman, that they have never married. They've been in a really long time and it works for them. Great. So if you have developed separate lives and it's all working, you've got great support.
But wait a minute, what about Oprah and Gail? How's it working for them?
Well, there you go. So yeah. So anyway, but so I think it really is, what are you looking for, and and I was also thinking, what are you afraid of? Because if you were in a more committed and closer relationship, what is there fear around that? So I think what Dr. Rob said about what is your vision for what do you, if 8 years from now you're in the exact same location, is that good? If it is, great. If you're looking for something more, what is it going to take to get there? And like he said, maybe this isn't the right bus. So.
And I got one more thing to say about that.
Okay.
As a sex addict, if I know I got a week with you and a week away from you, I can really turn on the charm for a week. I can work you, engage you, play with you, dance you, sing you, and then be off doing what I want to do. And you think, oh my God, we're so connected every time we're together. But the truth is I'm able to put that on for about a week or maybe 10 days. But when we're not together, I'm in a whole different place. I don't think you really know who you're with because he's done or she's done so much outside the relationship. What do you really have together? And do you want to have that again? I think there's a lot of questions on the table here. Thanks, Tammy.
Okay, so next question. We're coming up on our 3rd D-Day anniversary. We've been married for almost 30 years. My husband sought help after each previous D-Day, but this time he seems to have found the right help and is making progress towards recovery. Yay. I have been working on my own healing and have been making progress myself. I have been frustrated with myself for being triggered coming up on this D-Day anniversary. I want to move forward, but not sure what to do with my painful memories of this upcoming D-Day and previous D-Days.
So I think that it's important to honor your pain always and not try to push it away. I think sometimes people think, I want to be over this. I want to get rid of this. We're having a special, I think it's really, so one thing, I'm Jewish. And one of the things that we do in our religion that I really, really love, I don't know if you know this, Tammy, but every year on my mother's birthday, for example, or my father's birthday, I light a candle for them. And that candle burns for 24 hours in honor of their life. And I usually light it in front of a picture that I have of one of them somewhere. And we're asked to honor our ancestors on their birthday with a light that shines for 24 hours. So, I like candles as something that for me means something. You might want to burn something, or some people take, what's that stuff? Wait, I have some. I'll show it to you. I actually have some. They take some of this stuff.
Stuff is rather a general term, so I was drawing.
Well, you have this in Arizona. It's not so popular where I live.
But sage.
Yes, you can.
Yes.
And what do people do with sage,
People
Tammy, when
burn
they've had,
sage and they cleanse.
they
Yeah,
cleanse their environment.
yeah.
So if you and your husband want to take a little sage and light it and walk through the house and just clean your home with a new, you can have a little bit of a ritual or a grief ceremony, a candle, and then move on. So I wouldn't try to push it away. It's meaningful. Give it its due, but then understand it isn't your world today and move on.
I like that sage idea. Okay, so the person that talked about the app on the phone not being, well, that looks ridiculous.
Sorry.
So the person that said that he wouldn't delete the app, she asked about, she said, I'm struggling with what a boundary is and setting boundaries. So let's talk about boundaries.
Okay. So I remember lots of people have lots of descriptions, but my best description that did not come from me of a boundary. Tammy will have one too, I'm sure. I think of a boundary like if I'm in a tent and I'm out in the woods somewhere and you're outside the tent and you want to come in, where's the zipper? If the zipper's on the inside and I say, oh yes, you can come in, and that's my boundary. That's a boundary. I set the boundary. It's my tent. I get to let you in or not. If the zipper's on the outside, then I don't have a boundary. You get to come in and go whenever you please. So a boundary has something to do with some limitation that I have set for myself to make myself feel safe and at peace, that I don't want to talk about this, or I don't want you doing this, or I don't want us doing that, or whatever. It's about an action or a series of behaviors. Or so boundaries that partners set. I want you to be home at 6 o'clock after work. And if you're not, I want you to call me, so that they don't have to go crazy with it 6:15 and he's not home or she's not home. And remember what they used to do when they used to be late, and you set that boundary. Your boundary is when dinner's ready, or, I want you involved. I want you at the table. I want you with the kids. I don't want you working on your computer while the rest of the family's having dinner. When the phone rings and I don't know who it is who's called, I want you to tell me who called and who you were talking to, because I don't feel safe when people call and I don't know who you've talked to yet. These are boundaries, things that you feel are important to you, that are kind of make or break it to help you feel safe and move your relationship forward. And they're usually something that you might make a list of and then read it with a friend or a colleague or a pastor or a therapist to make sure that they're reasonable and they make sense. And then you sit down with your spouse and you say, hey, given what you did and what we've been through, these are some things that I need. And I need you to, and it can be, I need you to go into therapy. And what is the bottom line about the boundary? Well, ultimately the bottom line is, if you want to be with me, if you want this relationship to go forward, these are some things you're going to have to do for me and us. And here is that list. Now, your spouse can look at the boundaries and say, I'm willing to do this one, and I'm not willing to do that one. They can be negotiated. But ultimately, especially if he or she has been doing the cheating, you should be able to set the boundaries in the first couple of months that make you feel the most safe. For example, I have had spouses set a boundary like, I want your find a phone thing on your phone. And whenever you're out in the world, I want to be able to know where you are exactly so I can track you for the first month of your recovery. Okay. As long as the addict's not going to do anything they shouldn't be doing, then there shouldn't be a problem with their partner tracking them. And if that's what it takes for the partner to feel safe again, then that's what it takes. So the partner setting a boundary for the next month, I would like to have this thing turned on your phone so I can know where you are at all times. That's a boundary. Boundaries are rules that you set up for yourself in your relationship to feel safer and move forward. Tammy, do you want to have thoughts about boundaries?
Well, it's really about what's going to create safety, for you. And like Dr. Rob said, if I'm supposed to be home at 6 o'clock and I'm, and there's traffic, well, then you should know that on the I-17, there's traffic, and I'm calling you and I'm saying, I'm on the I-17, I'm at the 101, and like, I'm telling you, or I've got Weiss on and you can track my journey. I mean, whatever it is, but I think often partners are afraid to put in boundaries because they don't want to be mean or whatever. And I'm like,
or if I put too much pressure on him or her, maybe they won't get better, right?
Yeah, or they'll relapse because and then it's your fault. Well, it's not, but it really is about, like what they were doing didn't work. It screwed up the whole relationship. So there has to be, I talk about this a lot with people. Addiction is lack of boundaries. You know, it's like if somebody in active addiction is out doing whatever they want, whenever they want, you know, that's a complete lack of boundaries. So they have to learn new boundaries. You know, we talk about, I'm going to go to a meeting. You set a schedule. You start coming up with a healthy routine in recovery that is different than you had, you know, when you were acting out. And the people that don't do something like that are the ones that don't really get recovery. They may stop the behavior a little bit, but they never really get it, and they get kind of stuck and they're continuing to blame you, you know, well, I can't tell you the truth because you look how you reacted, you know.
That's awful.
It is awful. Yes. Yeah.
But I do want to say addicts have boundaries too. Like, I don't go to strip clubs. I don't look at porn. I don't pick people up on the street. I mean, my recovery is a whole set of boundaries around what is okay for me to do and what is not okay for me to do to keep me safe and my life safe. Really, recovery is about creating new boundaries for your life, whether it's not drinking or whatever it is, and following them. Hey,
and
Tam,
well, I want to say, but and boundaries for the relationship too. It's like, you know, like this is creating some space where you're going to spend some time together, and it doesn't even have to be boundaries, but like, you know, it's finding some framework, you know, on which to build, and just going with well, I don't know why I didn't take it off the app and why I didn't take the app off, and, you know, I'll do it when I want to, not when, you know, I mean, that does not build trust, and that does not move the relationship forward. That just creates a situation where you're going like, he's not trustworthy. So
I just want to put in a little plug before we move on for some of the new things that are happening in treatment. I guess I wanted to say that Dozer want to talk for me.
Dozer likes to talk.
I just want to say to you guys that, you know, I've been in this field a long time. I'm doing this work, and I really respect so many of my colleagues. But I have to say, in terms of treatment centers, there just aren't a lot of good ones. And I'm so sorry, but I worked in corporate healthcare, looking at treatment centers and organizing and managing them for 12 years. I just think that what I want you to know is that the center you send your partner to, or that you go to, is only as good as the people who are working there. It is only as good as the people who are actively live supervising treatment and running it, because any place can have a name and charge a lot of money and have a swimming pool and do fancy therapies, but do they know how to really hold you accountable, keep you safe? And are they doing it in a small enough environment? And I think this is really important. I see people going to $65,000 treatment centers, and they're in a lunchroom with 100 people. And people are walking by. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense how you can create, to me, the safety of this work has to be in smaller groups and smaller environments with a lot of intensity. And it shouldn't cost all that much money. It doesn't have to be that difficult to get the help you need, I don't think. And we're trying very hard to make it both affordable and expert. Well, the expert is a given, but affordable. So I just want you to know the treatment doesn't, and I set treatment at 2 weeks because I think we can do a lot in 2 weeks. But I also know that some of you can say, hey, I'm going on vacation, and you don't have to tell your boss what you've been doing and why you're going away and all that kind of stuff. So I'm really excited about the work we're doing. I think we're absolutely changing lives, and I want to encourage it. If you're not someone who's going to make it to our program, gosh, please come listen to Sex, Love, and Addiction, the podcast. It'll cost you absolutely nothing. And we have so many useful podcasts. On Friday nights, I show up on In the Rooms, and I do the same Q&A. You're welcome there. And, you know, Tammy helps organize and run the over 14 volunteer drop-in groups we have on sex and relationship healing every week for partners, for addicts, for gays, for straights, for everybody. And I am thrilled and honored to be offering. Look, it's the fact that some of you come to treatment with us that allows us to give everything else away for free, and I'm so grateful for that. But this is the best part of my day, is when we get to answer your questions and really put some hope into your lives. And I'm really excited that we are doing that both live and here and in so many other places. Thank you, Tammy, for being a part of it.
So there's one more, because we started late. So there's one.
So one more question.
So look in the chat. I'm not going to read the entire backstory, but it says, how can I teach my nervous system and my fight or flight to readjust to normal life where I no longer suffer under the hands of bullies, and in turn enhance my male relationships and trust? So I didn't read the backstory to you and out there, but I thought that was a really good question, is how can I change my reactions?
Okay, well, let me just say this to you, and I'll say that personally to you. I don't know what your childhood was like, but I was a very effeminate little boy. And I never knew when I was going to get the shit beaten out of me, or I was going to get called sissy or fag, or they're going to throw my books on the ground or throw me on the ground. I never knew for years, until I became old enough to protect myself, what was going to happen to me, because I was a little fag, and that's what kids called me, and that's what it was like. And so
Oh, you just muted.
So
there.
I really do understand and relate to that feeling of, I don't trust men, and I certainly don't feel safe with them. Here's the challenge for you. And I say this often, so this isn't unique to you. The deepest and most meaningful healing that can happen for women in recovery, whether it's alcohol, drugs, sex, whatever, is when women come together and they build bonds among each other. It is the strength that women give each other that will allow them to succeed in the world with their recovery. It's the same thing for us. If I don't make my peace with other men, if I don't see other men as my strength and my ally and my support, then I'm never going to be able to do very well with dating or have intimate relationships, because I've got to figure out friendships, same-sex friendships. And so I would say to you that you're on the right track. First of all, going through treatment is a great way to do this, because everything about treatment, we promote connection and support and listening to each other and confronting in kind ways. But we will have every client's back if anybody goes after them. So I do think part of it you get in treatment is an experience of building those kinds of intimate, supportive, non-sexual relationships, where if you feel unsafe, we'll address it or deal with it, or if you think you've brought unsafety on you. So I think treatment is the best place of all to deal with these issues around a bunch of guys who are in recovery with therapists who are watching. So I think you're about to head into a situation in treatment where you'll have that opportunity. The best treatment, in my opinion, does strong focus on social relating, social connecting, and you're really finding the deep support, not just with us therapists, but with the other men who are in treatment. And we promote that. So you will get we will run into all those difficulties while you're in treatment, and we will grow you past them one at a time. Tammy, you're reading a heartbreaking question.
I am. I have to. It's no question. Just thank you for the work you do, Dr. Rob. And if we had only known about you and your work 25 years ago, I suspect my partner would probably still be alive. I only discovered you in the fall of 2019 and have been listening ever since for my own ongoing recovery tools. I work with partners of sex addicts. Never too old. This person's 75. It's never too old to learn what you teach about building new relationships and lifestyle love. This person.
Well, Tammy tears up whenever anyone says
do.
thank you. So you have a guaranteed, you guys. But I want to say something to you. I'm in the field because I recovered in the mid 1980s. And what happened in the mid 1980s, people started getting HIV and AIDS. And I knew that no gay guys were going to listen to Patrick Carnes because he's some straight guy from the Midwest. I got in the field to try to keep people from dying from the disease of AIDS. And so, of course, Tammy asked me why I'm activated around coronavirus. I've already seen viruses come and I've seen what they can do. So yeah, I have that weighing heavy on my mind, but thank you for that. We're just really grateful for the opportunity to promote the healing and support you. And I really figure whatever time you find us or find this is just right for you, when you're ready, when it's in your time. And, every day can have a miracle in it from now on. So there you go. Thank you, Tammy. I'm going to go eat dinner.
Thank you, Dr. Rob.
Feed the dog.
Thanks, everybody, for coming. So appreciate you being here.
Have a great week. Bye for now.